Okay. Welcome, super secret agent trainees, to WhizGirls Academy. Today we have a special master agent trainer, Lee Garverick, and she's going to share her journey with us. Thank you, Lee, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody.
Okay, so Lee, tell us about your childhood.
Okay, sure. I grew up in Los Angeles, in the city of Whittier, which is just south of Los Angeles. And it was a great place to be a kid there. We went to the beach all the time and a lot of nice days there. Um, my mom was a math teacher, so I was never afraid of math. And she really, she, for her whole life, anytime she got like a math problem or a math puzzle, she would go off and be completely fascinated till she had it solved. So she got me excited about math early on, and I always really liked math. But I also liked a lot of other things. Like I loved theater and was in plays from about third grade on all the way through high school. I liked student government. I like to do sports with wheels like roller skating and skateboarding around town and biking. What else? Yeah, those were the things I like to do. Girl Scouts was another thing that I thought was really fun. We lived on a cul-de-sac, so you could go out in the street and play with your friends just right out there. That was all summer long. We kind of did that. There weren't as many camps and things as there are now. Arts and crafts we did in the garage. Yeah. Um, um, our drama teacher was a really big influence, super, super encouraging. My math teacher also was one of those in high school. Um, yeah, that's kind of my beginnings anyway.
Okay, so you mentioned Girl Scouts, and we have had Girl Scouts beta test our games, and we have a Girl Scouts patch for Whiz Girls. We have a couple things with Girl Scouts. So I'm curious to hear your experience with the Girl Scouts back then.
Well, I love those patches. I love collecting those patches, and I would work on them by myself too, just to get more patches. Um, but yeah, we went on a couple of camping trips. We did some local projects. We went and sang to different like care homes and things. I used to really love those meetings where you just hang out with your friends. And I loved the field trips we took. Yeah, it was a just a nice part of childhood there. My kids also did it, and there's even more to it now. Bigger camps, more things to do than back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, very cool organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so you told us a little about your passions and hobbies as a child, but did you have a dream job back then?
I didn't really like at first I wanted to be the donut guy because I really like donuts and then I thought I might want to be an actress and with my interest in theater. Um, but I really didn't know what and I think at that age for me there wasn't something like your program where you get to see different people and what their jobs are. So I wasn't really sure. I thought teaching would be good. Um, and by the time I got to college, I kind of thought I'll either study teaching or something related to math because I liked both of those. I had been a preschool teacher's aide as a job for a while and really liked teaching, um, but also really liked math and I knew it led to good jobs, but I didn't know what they were then. Really, I didn't really understand. And then computers were just coming to be. So I knew that working with computers is a little bit like math where you have to think very logically. So the math is kind of good training for that. Um, so it was later that I really picked computers as the direction I wanted to take in college. So yeah, back before that, I was doing all kinds of things. I was a little bit good at a lot of things back then.
Okay, that's interesting because you brought up math a
Yeah.
couple times and also computers. So,
Yeah.
did you hear about the word STEM when you were younger, or like at what point did you hear about that? And then how did that lead to your math, if it did?
Yeah, I didn't hear the word at all. Not sure anybody used the term back then. But I did hear the idea that those areas of study are super important because of my mom and her background. Um, and I think I was lucky for my age that got passed on to me. I know that a lot of girls were told not to study math. I mean, some girls couldn't even take the classes. They were not allowed. There weren't enough spaces. I was just chatting with a friend about that last night. Whereas for me, the door was always open to do it. And even I was even pushed and encouraged. Also, I tended to think that some of those fields are actually more work than some of the other fields that you could study. And that encouragement was really important to realize it's worth pushing through sometimes because you get stuck. You can really get stuck in a math problem or a coding problem. And some girls would assume, oh, it's because I'm a girl and I'm not good at this. No, it's not easy for anybody. You got to just push through and have some tenacity about it and just hang in there and keep trying and trying other things and being a bit systematic. So all those ideas are part of STEM, I think. And I just got it from my mom instead.
No, that's a good point. And it sounds like
Yeah.
you had her as a mentor along the way. If you had anyone else, please share with us.
Yeah. Well, my father, he actually was not in math fields. He was more in philosophy and other things, but he always was very supportive that girls should be doing this. There's no difference here. Um, so that was one. And then my sister is older and she ended up going into engineering as well. So that was another kind of role model, and over time became one as well. And then also like a buddy to talk about all this stuff with for our whole lives, about all the things that go on when you're building things.
That's really good, and thank you for sharing. Okay, so your journey from computer science degree and math bachelor's at UC Davis. So tell us about that, and how do you end up at UC Davis?
I chose Davis because I I love the setting there. It's a very happy place. It was back then, and it still is now. They had a good math department, all the computer science departments were new, including theirs. That it was clearly going to happen by the time I got there. My brother had actually gone there as well, so he was still in town, so I had a friend in town. Being in from LA, I wanted to be somewhere a little bit far away, and it felt a little bit exotic, even though it was 400 miles, not thousands, like some people do. So that was a draw also. So just, I felt like it was a great education and a great place to be 17, 18, 19, 20 years old in that town. I like the farm town feeling that it has.
That's really cool. And why did you choose computer science? Like, out of all of the majors, like, what was that?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was attractive about that?
Yeah. And that's a great question, because by the time you get there, just liking math, well, there's like 50 choices all using math, and computers was just one of them. But it was a brand new field. And I saw that by taking those classes, I could get these really cool internships, which are jobs you get in the summertime that help pay for college and paid better than other jobs you could get in the summertime, for one thing. And they were really interesting, more interesting than working in a restaurant or whatever, like you normally do in the summer. So it opened up all these really cool doors, and you could see that all kinds of places needed computers. So you could use it for education. You could do software for education. You could do software for space. You could do software for oil companies. Anybody trying to get things done benefits from software. So it was a really great basis for a lot of opportunities. So I was debating between teaching, which is also such an amazing field, and computers. And I started out, once I graduated, kind of doing both. But I ended up picking the computer major for the many opportunities it had.
And did you get any resistance of like wanting to be a computer scientist?
I don't think I ever really did, or I know a lot of people did at that time. I might have just ignored it because the influence from my mom was so strong that I just knew if they were going to be biased, I'd just ignore them because they didn't deserve my time basically. So I never had to really push through big barriers in that way.
Okay, good. Because I think that's what our super secret agents would love to hear. Is like, if they like computer science, if they like making games, if they like coding, it's a fun experience, and nobody should tell them otherwise, right?
Right. Oh, for
Like what
sure.
you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I would say maybe the area that's more of a challenge is if somebody says it's not cool and you want to be cool and you want to fit in, or it's harder for girls. And then when it gets hard, you think, oh, well, maybe I have, and that's something you got to kind of, uh, or I learned to ignore both of those and do the thing that I like because I thought it was cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important because I know also at some point Barbie said math was hard, and I thought that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's always that like kind of somebody saying something, but you just got to push through to what you want to do. And it sounds like that's what you did.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah. What do you think?
yeah,
Yeah.
so you had 4 years at UC Davis, and then what happened next?
So then I went out and got a job. So I had these internships in the summers, working actually with an oil company back then, helping them understand what was underground. So all these interesting geology projects. But then when I graduated, I decided I wanted to work more in software company and found an educational computer game company. And I found it was very tiny, but I found it by asking my professor. I'd seen an article about educational games and asked the professor, and they knew somebody with a connection to somebody. And I ended up working at a little tiny company making educational games. And they had me responsible for my very own game right after college. And this was a long time ago. So we used to ship our games in boxes, and I have it.
I remember that. Ooh,
Yeah.
what is it called?
It's called Lucky's Magic Hat.
Lucky's Magic
And,
Hat.
yeah, and it ran on the Apple II.
Yeah.
And it got sold through McGraw-Hill and Macy's and various places. And it has my name on it, and it was a really cool experience to do it. It was definitely a time where I had to push through. I thought it was going to take 3 months, and it took about a year. But I got it done, and I actually had help from graphic artist and a sound person that were specialists in that. But I did the code.
Okay, so yeah, walk us through, I think, because our secret agents are probably curious, like, what did you work on this game, and how long did it take, and what, like, if you had any, like, setbacks or challenges, and how did you push through those?
Yeah, sure. I think technology's come a long way. So this was even before the Macintosh was released. So this was in the 80s. So some of these may change and some may be the same, but so I just sat down and I started coding and kept coding until it was done. And a year went by, and there were times when it got hard enough. I would cry like, I want to be done, and I just keep writing this code and writing this code and writing this code. And I remember chatting with my parents, and my dad said, "You got to finish it," and I was trying so hard to finish it. But on the other hand, I think that was a good thing to do. Like, just like the grit it takes to push through, even when there are these things that don't work and you have to make it work, and you just keep trying and trying. But at the end, you've done this, you've created something that nobody else has created, and it has your name on it. That's a pretty good feeling.
And did you have like a big team that you work with? It was just you and you had like graphics people and all the other groups?
Yeah, I had there was a graphics person who spent maybe 3 weeks on the graphics, and there's a sound person who spent maybe a week, and the rest of the 52 weeks, it was me by myself, basically working on it. Now, most software projects are not like that. Once in a while, you find that. And in these tiny startups, it might be a guy to start or whatever. But I had my manager who was giving me advice. He'd built the first games that were being sold and kind of paying for my salary in the next game. But the rest was just me. So I kind of had like a picture of the parts of the game that my manager and I both agreed that it should have, you know, this module and this module, these parts of how it's going to work and how they're going to fit together. And then we would talk about what you would see in each of the parts, and then I would code it. Now here we are 40 years later. Often I sit on teams of even like 100 people or more, all working together on things. So that, you know, you can kind of think about, do you want that? Or do you want a bigger team with more support for each other? It's cool to put your name on something, but it's also, I think it would have been nice to have some buddies at that point instead of being all alone so much. So it's a matter of what's important to you. And you learn that as you go. Like that was my first job. And after that, I said, no, that was cool, but I want to work more with other people. So then my next job was a little more social. But that was a good start.
Okay, so tell us about that. So you went from that to a director of marketing, is that right?
I worked my way over. So then I went to Hewlett Packard, HP, and I wanted to work more with people. So I took a job where I was helping troubleshoot problems with other people and customers, and then training on how to use our software and work with our software. And then from the training, that was a lot of practice in speaking about these technical things. And then I moved from there to a department called marketing, where you're still working with very technical people, but it's more about how you explain and package what the engineers are building and delivering it to the customers. So that part of HP was just so good because they encourage you to try all the different roles. So you could do engineering and then do marketing, do technical support, and see what you liked. And so I did most of the jobs in that division. And it was a lot of people, many of them right out of college too. So a really nice support system there. So I never got my name on anything there, but it was fun to be in a real group of people working on something we love to do. And then after that, I kind of used what I learned at HP to go work at a company that was a combination of Apple and IBM working together. It was called a joint venture. So I was an Apple employee for a while, and then later an employee of the joint venture. So kind of using the same marketing ideas that I learned at HP. And then I had kids and wanted to work part-time. And so I started my first company then. And that was a marketing company, helping these other bigger companies sell their products. And I did that for 15 years. Should I keep going what I did next? Or
So then at one point you were a founder of a tech marketing company. So you want to tell us, what was that next?
Yeah, that was the marketing company I did. And it was there's, so sometimes you see these founders that build like Facebook or something huge. My company was, I had myself, and there would typically be a handful of others that I would pull in as needed, as contractors for me. And we would help other companies market their products, put together programs for their products. So like, let's say Hewlett Packard, went back to them as one of our customers, and they needed all this work done to make sure everybody understood what they were doing with this software program, why it was important, who was it useful to. And we put together all the communication tools for them with that, and could get right to the feature set of the software, or also just talk about the benefits and the values, and a lot of writing, setting up websites, setting up like all the steps a customer might go through to decide if they want to buy the product. That's called a workflow. And so I did that to have flexibility with my small kids. So that was one company I started. And then during that time, I was also volunteering at the schools a lot, and saw that there was an opportunity to help school volunteers, especially organizing walkathons. So I set up a company that's actually still there. It's called Walkathon Guide, and I wrote a paper about how you organize a walkathon, a little book actually. And at the time, I built a bunch of tools for walkathons, like just little ways of getting T-shirts, ways of having counters for how far you've walked, and put it all together in this one little store. I called it Walkathon Shop. And that was a little business I kept running for quite a while. It was just me all that time. And I had visions of making it into a company for all kinds of volunteers doing all kinds of things. And then I ended up getting hired to the next full-time job. And so that was the end of my two little companies that I had going back then. Now I have another company that's helping companies design their products. So a little more product focused than marketing focused, but that's my latest one. Particularly focused on space and industrial Internet of Things.
Okay, so that's your company, and you're working with Leo Labs, right?
That was my last job, my last employer, and now I have my own company called Lee Garverick Product Management.
Okay, yeah, so tell us about that. And what does I.O.T mean? Because I don't know if our secret agents know what that is.
Oh, right. That's Internet of Things. So it's all these things that are little computers, and how you have them out there collecting information or helping people. So it could be anything from robots to autonomous cars, self-driving cars, to Fitbits. Those are all things. Apple Watch, and then they connect to the internet. So I specialize in helping people do products like that, especially for business. So the last company I worked with for is probably an interesting one, even though it was before I started this one, is called Leo Labs. And that's how I met the people in AstraFemina, because they're focused on space, and particularly on low Earth orbit. So my boss had been an astronaut, and he was very concerned about a problem that we were working to solve, and they continue to work on solving, and that's space junk. And how do you track all this space junk, all the debris out there in space that's flying around, and especially protect the satellites up there and the space station up there that has astronauts living on it from all this space junk and from each other as it gets more and more crowded. So we were building software for that, and I can share that.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I think our secret agents would love to see what you're talking about. And tell us a little bit more of how you got into all this stuff.
Okay. So this one, I wanted to work at a company. I didn't want to start my own company at that time. For the kind of the friendships you get of working with other people and the things you can do as part of a big team. So I was looking around, and I found this company and applied, and they hired me because they needed someone who knew how to do software products, and they had some other software engineers, and so I got to join the team in that role. So I'll share my screen now. Okay, so this is just a little demonstration of what we did, and they're still doing. So you can see I have a globe in here. And on this globe, you can see all these little green dots. Each one of these little dots represents either a satellite or some space junk, space debris. And like you can see here, here's a bunch of satellites in a row. I'm guessing those are SpaceX, Starlinks. Maybe not. And then you see these red fields here. Those are what the company Leo Labs is watching. So these are the field of view of radars. And radars are things that are sitting on Earth, pointed up, looking at what's flying overhead. So they use these radars, collect the information, and send it into a computer in the cloud, to track all these objects. And then if there's any chance of any object crashing into another object and having a collision and bursting up into 1,000 pieces, they can send a warning to, if it's a satellite, to the satellite operator, or to the space station if it's them, so that they can avoid that collision by doing a maneuver, by changing their direction a little bit. So that's what this company is doing, and there are over 100 people working there. But my role there was mostly deciding which thing to build next. So every few weeks you start a new project, and then what would that look like? How would that work? So a lot of these choices here that you can turn on and off were my designs. A lot of this, what you see here, were built before I came, but after I came, I added more ways of doing things with it. And then there's a whole bunch more that's a little less beautiful to look at, that's kind of helping these operators decide what to do. So the real value here is preventing more junk up in space.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. And when you said space junk, it immediately made me think of Star Wars and all the things that happen in those places where they're going from different places to different places, and all the junk that's coming towards the vehicles and the stuff that they're moving around with. So it's fascinating. And who knew this stuff actually really exists?
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of interesting careers with this. There's physicists, astrodynamics specialists, satellite operators, and then the whole field of space, people who do propulsion, people who do rockets, all of that. So it was really fun to see all that.
Yeah, and that's great to point that out, because I think our secret agents are very curious about different kinds of jobs and what exists. Because like a lot of jobs that I grew up with didn't exist, and I'm sure yours like as well. Like it keeps changing dramatically. So thank you for sharing those. Okay, so tell us what you learned when you were 11 years old that you've kept with you today.
I've learned that it is possible to push through when things get hard. And that still applies. It still applies all the time. I've learned about how important it is to look on the bright side of things and to work at being optimistic, work on being positive, and making an effort about that. Let's see, what else? Another thing I think is looking at how you can see opportunities for adventure if you pay attention. And then finally, I think, and this is really more from my father, but having a sense of wonder about all the amazing things that are around us, that are there for us to learn and have fun with, has stuck with me all that time. And talking with you kids is just like an amazing experience as an example of that just makes me wonder, what all are you going to build? I can't even imagine how far you're going to take things.
That's a really good point. Thank you. And we'll get to some student questions shortly, but one more question. So you are now a space and industrial IoT product management consultant and advisor. That's super awesome. Can you tell our super secret agents a little bit more about what you do?
Sure. So I work with companies that need to build some kind of software or some kind of product, and I help them decide more detail about how they do that. Like, exactly who is this for? Who's going to use it? What do those people need? And then get really, really clear on that, so that when you start building, you build the right thing. Often when you start to build something, you realize you have like 1,000 choices of, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do that. And how do you think that through in a way that that really makes it so you have a product that's going to last a long time and be used by a lot of people. So that's where I start. And then we think about, okay, so we know who we want to help and we know what problem we want to solve. And then we go deeper. How should we solve that problem? Maybe the first idea isn't the right one. So doing a little bit of design thinking, of thinking about what are the best ways to solve the problem for the people. And then finally working with a big team, usually on setting up a way to deliver and build this thing. And then once that's done, which can take a long, long time, and usually it's ongoing, you build and then you build more and then you build more. How do you get it to market? How do you get it to the people that are going to use it? So I'm a software expert. I build apps, and my most recent focus has been on space and industrial Internet of Things.
And like, just curious, like, how did the space part come in? Like, was it something that you thought of maybe as a child? Like, was it from a movie you saw? Like, how did that come in?
Well, most people I worked with said that they loved space since they were kids and they had posters on their walls and everything. I really liked everything. And just about 5 years ago, I was thinking, I want to try something really specific with software, because software can go anywhere, as I said. And then I was looking for something specific and kind of found this job working in space. And then ever since then, I've just really loved it.
Very cool. Okay, we're going to switch to some student questions, and there are sometimes comments, but I'm going to read them. You are a role model and a real life superhero. Thank you. Have you had someone who helped you and inspired you in your STEM journey?
Well, certainly my mom, she was a real inspiration. My father also encouraged this pursuit, and so did my older sister. So a lot in that way. I also had some professors and managers in the places where I worked that each would be kind of a guide with some kind of idea. I would strongly suggest that you talk to your teachers and when you're in school and talk to your professors when you're in college about these topics, about what you're interested in. Go ahead and go ask them questions because they love it when you do it. But they won't always push you if you don't, and they can really be good mentors in that way.
That's a really good point. I think professors and teachers are always there to guide and help, so it doesn't hurt to ask questions. And that's
yeah. I'm really interested in this. What should I do? Kind of question.
Okay, great. Okay, so next question: what superpowers do you find that you have that have pushed you to where you are today?
I would say one is that I am pretty tenacious about if I have a goal, I stick with it and go for it. So that's one. And I think the other is I just get excited about these projects I work on. So kind of passion and curiosity and wonder are the others.
That's a good point. I think sticking to something, even though it could be hard, is really important, especially nowadays because everything happens like this. And I think secret agents are like waiting for Amazon to show up in 5 seconds and like, all the things where we had to like really work for things and make sure we really push through to the end. So I think that's a really good point that you brought up.
One more thought is that a lot of times I'm not sure at first what I want. And I can get a little bit stuck. But then once I jump in and make those decisions, then I go all in. And I think sometimes it's good to just make the leap, even if you're not totally sure.
So true. Yeah. Okay. So next question from the students. Can you tell us about a project that you worked on that made you really happy?
Many of them. So I told you about the game already. One that I didn't talk about was this tablet that I worked on. So it was, and it doesn't sound glamorous really, but I just thought it was a lot of fun. And it was this tablet that was intended to get rid of paper forms. So this was 13 years ago when there were still more paper forms everywhere where you have to fill something out and sign it. And paper just wasted, so much wasted paper of all these things. When you go to the doctor, you get like 8 of them. And so we wanted to get rid of paper forms everywhere. So we built this tablet that you could write on with a pen, and then the form would go into the cloud which is like a place to save it, so that we could take this paper out of everybody's work and make it a lot easier to hang on to the documents that are needed. I'll show you it now. I don't have it charged, so I can't turn it on, but at least I can show you. So this is the tablet that we built. It was for a company called Rico. They called it the Equal, and it had a pen built in here on the side, and then you could write here. And it feels like when you're in the grocery store and you sign when you're signing out to pay your bill with your credit card. It's just like that, but you could put the form on here, push it on from a button on the internet, and then it would go on here, and then you could fill in the forms there. And let me think about why it was so fun. I loved it had all these moving parts. Like this tablet actually had a phone in it to send the form back if you're like a delivery person. So we had to set up a cellular phone in there. You couldn't talk on it. You could only send the data. All the moving parts, the pen had to work, the forms had to work, the storage of all those forms had to work. It was just really fun getting this whole beautiful system working together. So that's one.
That sounds really cool. And how many people were working on that at the same time? And it sounds like it was kind of before the iPad, right? Like
just before the iPad. Yeah. Yeah. So we had about, I think 120 or so. So about 80 engineers. And again, I was doing kind of this design of how this should look and feel for people on the software side. Somebody else actually did that, what that physical tablet was like.
the hardware part.
The hardware part, yeah.
Interesting. Very cool. Okay, another student question. You've had many hard and soft skills, including cloud computing, go-to-market, e-commerce, and Python. That's a programming language for anyone that doesn't know, among many other skills. Tell us how you were able to develop some of these skills and how they have helped you along your journey.
Yeah, bit by bit. So I learned how to write software only in college. Back then, I couldn't learn it in high school. They didn't have it, but they had it in college. So by the time I was done, I had the skill of writing code. And then I got way better at it when I wrote the game. And then each job had a set of skills I had to learn really by doing it. And in the last 13 years, I have often listened to podcasts about all these different skills to learn that way, or gone on YouTube. I've taken online classes. And then a lot of it is by having coworkers that were really smart that helped. You know, I could ask them questions and they could ask me questions, and we'd learn from each other that way. So a lot of it was just trying things. And sometimes I'd have to work longer than 8 hours a day to learn because I wanted to do something new and different. And that's really your choice if you want to try something a little harder and work a little harder, or maybe go a little slower for a while, just depending on what else is happening in life. Yeah, but I just learned by doing all that time.
That's a really good point. I think our secret agents are very curious and they want to learn. So that's, you mentioned like podcasts and all the different things you did. So I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's switch back. Looking into the future is exciting. What do you imagine for girls in STEM down the road? And how can we make sure that every girl gets a chance to be part of the STEM adventure?
Oh, so there's, I'm so excited about what's going to happen in the next 30 years. I cannot even imagine, well, I kind of can imagine this world where I'm hoping by the time I'm really old, I don't have to drive because I can have a self-driving car take me around. A lot of the things that are really boring or hard are done by robots. And so we can all be working on things that make the world better, instead of like just the same old stuff over and over. Just like now everybody has a vacuum cleaner. There used to be people had to sweep everything and couldn't have carpets, right? So I'm so excited for all these things that are coming to be: space exploration, um, better and better medicine, better and better understanding of nutrition and health, better and better education, different ways of learning based on how you think. And that takes people to get these ideas into reality. And that's what I hope these girls are thinking about. What do you care about that you want to make better? Because if it's something worth making better, it's probably possible to have it as a job. Um, so, and then what was the other part of your question?
How can we make sure that we have the girls as part of the new STEM journey moving forward?
Right, right. Well, I think the first thing is just be aware that that's there for you. If you want to pursue it, you can. And if you're hearing otherwise, or you're not hearing much about it, remember that's an option, and it is an option for any girl. And I think once you get into a college setting, girls are encouraged to do it. You just have to go sign up. And then also, like I've been saying before, when it's sometimes challenging, don't think that's because you're a girl. Just stick through it. It's worth it.
That's
Yeah.
a really good point.
Yeah, I think it's good for us women to support each other, and encourage each other. So find your buddies. That's another way. And male buddies are great too, but the other women are super supportive, I think. So be sure to support each other.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so what advice would you give our aspiring secret agent trainees in the audience?
Like I would say, push through, try really hard in these subjects because it's worth the extra work. Have confidence in yourself. You can do it. Ask questions of your teachers, support each other, and have big dreams. Think about where in your wildest dreams, what could you be doing? A lot of these astronauts that I speak with, they didn't know they could be astronauts, but they tried it and pursued it, and there they were up in the space station. And I didn't know I could do all these fun things with computers when I started. I just tried it, and one thing led to another. So dream big.
Thank you for that. That's all really good advice. Okay, how can our special secret agent trainees follow your journey moving forward? Do you have Instagram? Do you have a website? Is it LinkedIn? Like, what's the best way to keep in touch with you?
It's probably LinkedIn, and I would love to connect if anybody wanted to connect there.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we're going to switch we'll do key takeaways in a minute, but we're going to do something fun. So we always ask our master agents fun things that they did when they were kids. So, like, what was your favorite toy growing up?
Let's see. My favorite, it was my roller skates.
Really?
Yeah, I also like blocks a lot. I like to build.
Great.
I like my Barbie, but mostly I like to sew clothes for her more than other things.
Sew clothes. Wow. And were you doing
Yeah.
that as, like, how old were you when you were sewing clothes?
Probably 7 or 8. Yeah, because
Wow.
you do like two. It was just you cut kind of a triangle and then sew the two sides together and cut a hole, make a hole for the sleeves and sew it together.
That's
It
very
was,
cool. That just
yeah.
reminded me of, I don't know if you've heard of Max. He's also 7 now. He's actually making real clothes for like Fashion Week and Sharon Stone and all the things, but he's 7 years old. Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
He's on
Wow.
Instagram and he's got over 1 million followers, and he's also like got UTA, the big talent agency, to represent him. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, we just had piles of fabric and all these dolls, and we just sit there and make stuff.
No, but that's awesome. And that's interesting that you didn't think about doing that as a career, and maybe like, that
could be one. Yeah, that'd be a neat one.
Yeah, that's wild. Okay, how about favorite video games?
Well, there weren't that many back then. I liked to play Pong then, and I liked Pac-Man, but I didn't have all the new ones.
Those are the Atari 2600s that I grew up with. That I was obsessed with. Yes, absolutely. Okay, what about sci-fi? Like Star Trek or Star Wars or both?
Probably Star Wars, but I like both. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, those are probably my favorite too.
Okay.
You know what I liked? Our stories. They're not so much in movies, but in books. Stories about women from old times that did all these brave things that you would never imagine. Like code breakers and the women who were spies and the women who were inventing things that when no one expected them to. I just love all those stories.
That's a really good point. I think Hidden Figures was huge for me. I didn't know that existed back then, the movie, and I think that was a book, which I didn't know existed back then either.
Right.
So I remember actually watching that movie and in the movie theater screaming. That's when I first learned how to code Fortran when they were during the movie. I was like, oh my God, that's when I first learned how to code Fortran. Like, totally forgot.
Oh.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. Okay, what about favorite superhero?
Probably Wonder Woman.
Yes, we're in good company.
Yeah.
I'm like obsessed with Wonder Woman, as you can see.
Like, oh, nice. Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Linda Carter originals were the best. I mean, obviously the movie, the first one was amazing. The second one, not so much, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw those, but
I did. Yeah.
Okay, how about favorite animated series or TV show as a child?
Oh, as a child. Let's see. Back then it was probably Scooby-Doo, where they were always solving these mysteries going around. Oh yeah, and books. There was a book series that back then called The Boxcar Children, where I think it was all about people that were solving mysteries, but they were kids and there weren't any adults mucking around with things. It was just the kids going around solving things.
And so Boxcar Children was separate from Nancy Drew, right?
Yeah, it was separate from Nancy Drew. Yeah, Nancy Drew came a little bit before. And the one I just really got hooked on was Boxcar Children. As far as books, and Little House on the Prairie, just the thought of making it as all out there on their own I thought was pretty cool.
Very cool. And what about favorite movie of all time, and then also favorite TV show that you're watching like now?
Oh boy, I should have studied your questions ahead of time. My favorite movie of all time. Let me come back to that. And yeah, right now I'm watching The Fall of the House of Usher, but I don't think that's great for kids necessarily. It's pretty Halloweenish for sure.
Oh yeah, we are in that time right now, so
yeah,
makes sense. We're in Halloween time.
Right. Yeah, Ted Lasso is a great one. Also, I think he has a lot of lessons. If you watch him, he's a great one, and it makes you happy.
Oh yeah, Ted Lasso, of course. Be a goldfish and have a 1 second memory. Was that what it says? Something like that.
Oh right, yeah, right. That's a good quote there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember a movie off the top of my head. If I think of one, I'll shout it out.
That's okay, no worries. All right, we're gonna do key takeaways. So if we miss anything, please feel free to chime in.
Okay.
Find the things you love to do at a young age. Push through when things get hard. Keep on trying until you reach success. Listen to your heart and don't listen to the negatives. Grasp experiences to figure out what you like to do. look into opportunities for adventure, having a sense of wonder about all the amazing things around you, and see the fun that there is for you to learn and grow. Be comfortable with working with others, stick to your goals, be excited, curious, and passionate about your work.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah, good luck, everybody. Connect with me on LinkedIn if there's anything I can do or questions you have. And I really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Master Agent Lee. We really appreciate you and being a founder as well and taking the time to share your journey with us. And I'm sure that our super secret agents will probably reach out after they listen to this. So thank you again for your time. And that's it for us today at WhizGirls Academy. And we'll come back for your special secret agent missions tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.